In this life, I personally severed the tangled knot of fate binding me to Elena Vance. She stayed in the comfort of D.C. while I volunteered for the remote frontier. She remained a civilian doctor. I signed myself away to a classified black site research facility. On my deathbed, she slashed her own wrists outside my isolation ward, begging for just one look. I ignored her. Fighting through the agony, I scribbled down the final algorithmic data, completing my life's work before letting go. When she heard the news, she vomited blood. "Caleb Stone, why couldn't you look back at me, even once in this life?" Elena Vance was the only daughter of a decorated Army general, an Ivy League Ph.D. While I was just a dirt poor nobody from the Appalachian hollers who'd grown up hungry. Fate should never have let our paths cross. But General Vance had been wounded in combat years ago, saved by my mother's rudimentary field dressing skills. Elena, marrying me, was supposed to be a debt of honor. The day before our wedding in the previous timeline, Julian Blackwood's wife had died in a car accident while running an errand for Elena. On her deathbed, she made Elena swear to take care of Julian and his son. That became Elena's eternal excuse. In that past life, I gave up my dreams of the Frontier program, taking on the burden of caring for Elena's family, slaving away for them like a draft horse. The result? The mother-in-law I had nursed for a decade like my own flesh and blood begged me on her deathbed. "Caleb, Elena has paid her debt to you with her happiness. Let her go. My daughter hasn't smiled in years." Even my own son, the boy I raised with everything I had, looked at me with cold eyes and said, "Dad, the one who isn't loved is the third wheel. Mom has been miserable for years because of you. Just let her be with Uncle Julian." My suffering meant nothing to them. After Elena's parents passed, I agreed to the divorce and headed back to the mountains. It was a beautiful day, though my legs were failing me by then. A landslide swept my car off the road. Buried under tons of earth, my pathetic life ended. When I opened my eyes again, I was back to the day the general's men came to collect me. "Mr. Stone, your father passed away 3 days ago. He dedicated his entire existence to this country. We are grateful for his sacrifice. We are here to fulfill his final wish. He entrusted you to General Vance, hoping the general would look after you for old time's sake. Mr. Stone, can you hear us? Please pack your things. You're coming to the Vance estate." I blinked, my eyes focusing on the 3 officers in dress blues and the black government SUV parked outside our shack. "Mr. Stone, the mission is still classified. Please forgive us, but we cannot publicly announce your father's heroism, nor can we bring back his remains. Please pack your bag." A small, heavy box was pressed into my hands. The 3 officers couldn't bear to look at me. A man leaves whole and healthy, bears the stigma of abandoning his wife and child for years, and comes back as nothing but a small, square box. Not even ashes, just an empty vessel for a flag. I closed my eyes, my body trembling uncontrollably. It was like fate's cruel script. 10 days ago, my mother succumbed to old injuries. Shortly after she passed, my father followed. I was left entirely alone, a piece of driftwood in a storm. I packed my meager belongings and hurried into the SUV, clutching that small box to my chest. Inside was $50 in cash and a stack of government bonds. I didn't know if it was what my father had saved or the government's compensation. In my past life, I resented him. I blamed him for choosing the country over our family. But in this life, I would follow in his footsteps without hesitation. When General Vance learned I didn't want the marriage and instead wanted to apply for the Frontier Defense Initiative in Alaska, he gave me a strange look. When my mother was alive, she often spoke of the debt the general owed her, insisting Elena was destined to be my wife. The whole military district, even my home village, knew of the arrangement. Previously, I had played the part of the devoted fiancé to please her. But when the wedding loomed, I backed out. "Are you sure? Caleb, I know Elena can be willful, but you two have known each other for years. There's a foundation there," General Vance said, looking through me to the ghosts of my parents. "Besides, this was your parents' wish. They wanted you to marry, have children, and live a peaceful life." He couldn't bear to see me step into danger. My father had served under him. My mother had saved him from a burning Humvee. Our fates were tangled. I smiled. "Thank you, General, but my mind is made up. The selection exams are coming up. My target is Alaska. It was the only hope I had in this life." The general remained silent for a long time, but couldn't sway me. "Fina, we'll discuss canceling the engagement after you pass the exams. Until then, stay at the estate. Try to get along with Elena." I stumbled as I walked out of his study. I remember the first time I saw Elena Vance. She had come to our village on a medical volunteer trip. Beautiful kind. She stole my heart with a glance. Giving her up felt like carving out a piece of my own flesh. And my unborn son, he looked like her, handsome, but in my past life, he hated me. He said he wished he'd never been born rather than be my son. They all resented me. If that was the case, I would let go with dignity. 2 weeks. Just 2 weeks until the exams, and I would be gone. I walked into the guest room prepared for me and took out my textbooks. Why are you in my house? Elena walked in, bathed in the evening light. She was wearing a stunning designer dress, her hair perfectly curled, her face flushed as if she'd been running. Behind her stood Julian Blackwood in a crisp uniform. I clearly saw the brand-new luxury watch on his wrist, a gift from Elena. A watch I had admired in shop windows for months, saving pennies hoping to buy it one day. The general sent people to pick me up. I said quietly, my hand tightening on my sleeve. Last night, on the phone, I had begged Elena to come with them to get me. She had replied impatiently, I have things to do tomorrow. You know how many cases are waiting for me at the hospital? My time is literally human lives. She wouldn't accompany me to my father's memorial, but she had time to go shopping with Julian. Couldn't you have come by yourself? Elena muttered, then happily grabbed Julian's arm. Julian, come see the gift I got for Leo in my room. Otherwise, he'll keep complaining that I don't care about him. We probably shouldn't. Shouldn't you spend time with Caleb? Julian made a show of awkwardly pulling his arm back, but Elena held on tight. What's the point of spending time with him? Ever since his mom saved my dad, he's been at our house constantly. The whole family has thick skin. She waved her hand dismissively, unable to hide her excitement. I knew that look. It was reserved for Julian and his son. It's a custom-made toy car I ordered for Leo. Elena's room was just one wall away from mine. The general arranged it this way to foster intimacy, but I just felt humiliated. At dinner time, Elena knocked on my door, sounding annoyed. Come down to eat, and watch what you say. She warned me not to talk too much in front of her father. I mumbled a yes. She immediately put distance between us. Even the housekeeper, Maria, knew Elena avoided me like the plague. Julian is here, too. Mrs. Vance, who had been sitting listlessly, lit up. She practically shoved Julian into a seat. The dining table had 5 spots. With the housekeeper, there was no room for me. Oh, I'm so sorry, Caleb. I wasn't thinking. Maybe you can sit over there. Mrs. Vance feigned realization, gesturing to a stool. Look at my memory. You're the guest. How could I let Julian take your seat? You don't blame me, do you? In the last life, she treated me with the same passive-aggressive disdain. Back then, I didn't understand why she preferred a widower with a child over me. Now I saw it clearly. I was a hillbilly. I had no capital to claim a high-society flower like Elena Vance. It's fine, Mrs. Vance. I'm not hungry. I was going to go for a walk anyway. I grabbed a book to hide my embarrassment. The general coughed, mumbling something I couldn't hear. Not long after, the black SUV pulled up beside me as I walked down the driveway. It was Elena. She looked utterly impatient, disgust evident in her eyes. Caleb Stone, it was just a seat. Why give my mother attitude? We feed you, house you, and treat you well, and this is how you act? Get in the car. Do I have to wait until my father yells at me before you're happy? Get in, Caleb, Julian said from the back seat, playing the peacemaker perfectly. Elena is just stressed because the general scolded her. Don't hold it against her. Let's go to the diner in town, Elena said stiffly, noticing my silence. She offered a dry explanation. I wasn't lying about being busy. Julian's best friend was deployed on a suicide mission today. It hit him hard. I promised his late wife I'd take care of him. I owe him that. She thought Julian needed comforting for a friend's deployment. She forgot that I had lost both parents in the span of 10 days. Last night, having just learned of my father's death, I had begged her to stay on the phone with me. I didn't want to be alone, didn't want to look out at a city of a million lights, knowing not a single one burned for me. But Elena hadn't even listened. She hung up impatiently. In my past life, it was the same. She claimed there was nothing between her and Julian, yet time and again she abandoned me when I was sick or grieving. She said that coming from a military family, she would never betray her vows. So she danced on the line of betrayal, using gratitude as a shield to get close to Julian. Even when we had our own child, my son had to bow his head to Leo Blackwood. Half our income went to subsidize Julian's household. I had endured too much. I was tired. In the past, every "it's okay" drained my soul. Now I said it calmly. It's okay. Julian's wife died for you. You should do this. I smiled to ease the tension in the car. Elena let out a long breath. When we arrived at the diner, she awkwardly tried to be nice. Order whatever you want. Don't go telling my dad I'm starving you. Julian listed off a bunch of expensive appetizers. I sat down quietly, but the food had barely hit the table when Julian suddenly slapped the table and stood up. Damn it. I forgot I have a meeting with a contact. Elena, you guys eat. I need to go. He feigned a retreat. Elena looked at me. Julian, the food is here. Eat first, then go, okay? It was the first time she had ever seemingly prioritized our dinner. Julian looked anxiously toward the door. It's fine, Elena. I'll handle it. Even though we agreed to do this dinner together, he didn't want to go alone. I'd seen this play 1,000 times. It was all to provoke me. A few words, and he would not only get Elena's defense, but also enjoy my humiliation. And every time, Elena fell for it. I'll drive you. You stay here. And wait for me, she said to me. This time was no exception. Elena grabbed her keys and chased after him. The large diner booth was left with just me and a table full of cooling food. The last time I was abandoned like this was on a rainy night. It was my birthday. The general had specifically asked Elena to bring me to dinner at the officers' club to introduce us as a couple. Just as the appetizers arrived, Julian called. Leo had a fever. No matter that the general yelled or that there were other doctors, Elena left. I became the laughingstock of the base. The officers' wives comforted me to my face, but whispered behind my back that a hillbilly like me should have known better than to reach for a Vance. That night, I went home in despair, only to find the telegram about my mother's death. I heard she had died, trying to walk to town to get medicine, hoping to call me for my birthday. In my past life, I naively thought Elena would stand by me through that tragedy. I learned later that Julian was her childhood crush. His wife's death was her opportunity. Why would she waste time on me? The two of them walked out the door. Julian turned back to shoot me a smug grin before taking Elena's arm. I signaled the waitress. Just me eating tonight. Outside, the sky opened up, rain lashing against the glass. This time, I didn't wait. I paid the bill and walked out into the storm. Instead of waiting for an umbrella that wasn't mine, I'd rather face the rain and forge my own steel. By the time Elena returned to the diner, it was pitch black. The rain was still drizzling. The waitress pointed to the empty booth. Need me to heat those up? Your friend left hours ago. Elena shook her head blankly. In the past, if she told me to wait, I would wait until the sun burned out. Why did I leave this time? A strange sense of loss washed over her as she sat back in her SUV. The next day, I left early before she could question me. My childhood friend, Buck, was waiting for me at the edge of the estate grounds with a bag of biscuits from back home. I smiled and hugged him. Just you. Where's the fiancé? Buck asked, looking behind me. His face fell. Caleb, give it to me straight. Are the Van Cess treating you bad? I heard from the sheriff you're taking the exams for that Alaska project. Why go so far? Are you running away? Yeah, Caleb. You tell us. We're your brothers. Your folks are gone, but you got us, another friend added, eyes red. I patted their chests. Stop overthinking it. Take me to the sheriff. The sheriff, a mesmerizingly old man who ran our town, usually had a soft spot for me. But when I told him my plan, his face hardened. Boy, what kind of nonsense is this? I'm not saying don't take the exams, but stay in D.C. Why Alaska? Do you know how dangerous that black site work is? You're the only seed your parents left. If you die, how do I face them in the afterlife? No, I forbid it. Smoke puffed from his pipe. I dropped to my knees. Heavy. Please, Sheriff. Let me go. I want to serve the country. I want to finish the road my father started. I have no heart for marriage. Please. My forehead hit the floorboards with a thud. My friends knelt beside me. They didn't want me to go, but they saw my resolve. Fine, fine. The smoke dissipated. The sheriff's hand shook as he patted my head. You're stubborn as a mule, just like your daddy. I stood up and took out half the bonds from a box. A gift for the town that raised me. He refused. As we pushed the money back and forth, Mrs. Vance called the station phone. Caleb, Julian and Leo are coming over today. Why are you running around? You have too much free time. I did have free time. A year ago, I had been accepted into Georgetown Medical. It should have been a celebration. But Elena had an accident during a surgery. A patient died because she hesitated. The hospital cleared her, but she was traumatized. She refused to operate, refused to leave the house. I couldn't bear to see her like that. I offered myself as a practice dummy. For a year, I gave up my studies to be her patient. Sutures, injections, rehab. I let her practice on me until I had no unscarred skin left. Now, thinking back, it was laughable. No one remembered my sacrifice. Before leaving the sheriff's office, I unclasped the pocket watch from my chest and handed it to Buck. It was a gift from Elena when I turned 18. The only gift she ever gave me. Caleb, what are you doing? Buck backed away, eyeing the expensive silver watch. That's your favorite thing. I can't take that. I forced it into his hand, swallowing the lump in my throat. I don't want it anymore. It's yours. You always liked it. Unless you're too good for secondhand goods. I forced a smile. Buck scratched his head and took it. He loved the gift. I love the feeling of being free. No attachments, no disappointments. I returned to the Vance estate exhausted. Elena was standing at the door. The smell of a feast wafted out. I rolled up my sleeves to help, but she grabbed my hand. Why didn't you wait for me yesterday? The house doesn't need your help. You're a guest, not a servant. Go sit, she said stiffly. I pulled my wrist back. I knew you were busy. I came back on my own. Elena closed her mouth. She wanted to ask where I went if I got wet in the rain. But the words dissolved as Julian's car pulled up. Maria, let me help you with that. Julian walked into the kitchen like he owned the place, taking a hot dish from the housekeeper. They chatted like old friends. Mrs. Vance rushed over, snatching the hot plate and shoving it into my hands. Julian, you have soft hands. You shouldn't be doing rough work. Let Caleb do it. The heat seared my palms. I almost dropped it, but held on. It was 10 steps to the table. By the time I set it down, a massive blister had formed on my palm. To Mrs. Vance, I was born for labor. Julian was too precious to be hurt. Grandma, I want my present. Leo's shouting filled the room. I stood aside like an intruder until Elena noticed and pulled me over. Dinner time. I had Maria at a chair. Sit next to me. I stared at her gentle smile for a second before Leo kicked me in the shin. Go away. You're always bothering my mom. This is my spot. He pouted, not caring about my dignity. Mrs. Vance laughed and patted his head, telling me not to hold a grudge against a child. Elena was just as mischievous when she was little, especially those years she studied abroad. Gave me such a headache. Mrs. Vance chuckled. With that opening, Julian launched into a story. It unlocked the floodgates of their shared past. Walking by the Seine in Paris, listening to avant-garde lectures, making promises under foreign stars. In Julian's eyes, that was a history I could never touch, a fortress I couldn't breach. I was just a hillbilly who couldn't understand their snippets of French or their refined romance. Perhaps everyone at the table thought so. No one knew that I had taught myself French and German to read advanced medical journals back in high school. I wasn't stupid. I was just poor. But I had no interest in competing for affection with parlor tricks. As dinner ended, I stood to clear the plates. Elena naturally put her hand over mine to stop me, but her eyes were locked on Julian. I couldn't read her expression fully, but the admiration and affection were unmistakable. It was impressive how she could multitask, loving him while pitying me. Let Maria do it. You have your exams coming up. Study hard, she said. The concern I had once desperate craved now felt like bile in my throat. I gagged, covering my mouth, and rushed back to my room. Elena seemed like she wanted to follow, but her mother said something, and the living room fell silent. That night, unable to sleep, I went to the courtyard for some air. I overheard Mrs. Vance's voice drifting through the window. Elena won't admit it, but anyone with eyes can see she loves Julian. Can you really bear to watch your daughter jump into fire? Mrs. Vance sounded tearful. General, I'm not saying Caleb is a bad kid, but gratitude is one thing. Do we have to sacrifice Elena's entire life for it? The general sighed. Just wait a little longer. Go to sleep. The house went dark. I looked up at the sky. I wondered if my parents could see this. Sometimes, taking the hard road isn't wrong. I just didn't want this marriage to end in tragedy for everyone again. Mom, Dad, you understand, right? A tear slid down my cheek. That night, I dreamed of the past life again. This time, the memories sharpened. The humiliation, the servitude. I woke up with absolute clarity. The dream was over. Elena was sitting in my room when I opened my eyes. I looked at her in surprise. She pointed to the window. Dad said I should take you out. You've been here so long and haven't seen the city, she said. Julian is off today, and my parents are watching Leo. So, the three of us are going out. She ripped the curtains open. I blinked against the harsh sunlight. Get ready. Before we left, Leo hugged both of them around the neck. Daddy, Mommy, go have a nice date. I can take care of myself. He thumped his chest. Elena looked at me awkwardly. He's just a kid. Don't take it seriously. Elena had always resisted this marriage. 2 years ago, when she first found out about the arrangement, she drove all the way to my village to humiliate me. She had screamed, "A toad like you wants to eat swan meat? I will only ever love a man like Julian. You make me sick. Reading books at your age. Do you even understand them?" She had kicked my books into the mud, crushing my pathetic pride. Later, when Julia married someone else, and she developed her trauma, she tolerated my presence out of gratitude. But gratitude isn't love. I couldn't build a life on crumbs. The trip was miserable. Elena went from excited to angry because I was distracted. I wanted to say something, but when we returned home, my words died in my throat. I walked into my room to find chaos. My father's box had been pried open. The bonds were scattered, and on the floor, torn into confetti, was the only photo I had of my parents. I couldn't even remember my father's face clearly anymore. Rage, hot and blinding, surged through me. I grabbed Leo by the collar and roared. "Who told you to touch my things?" I had nothing left. Just that photo. Why did they have to take even that? Tears blurred my vision. Even Elena noticed my instability and stepped forward to calm me. But Julian moved faster. He punched me hard in the jaw. He didn't hold back. I tasted blood, feeling a tooth loosen. "Caleb Stone, I know you don't like Leo, but he's a child. How dare you put your hands on him?" I ignored the pain and looked at the bewildered Elena. "Do you think that too?" That was the only photo of my parents I had left. "Elena, I have nothing. I never expected her love. But in this grand, noble house, was I not even allowed a shred of dignity?" "That's not." Elena started to explain, but I turned and walked away without looking back. After that, my relationship with the Vances hit absolute zero. I slept there, but spent my days at the university lab helping my professor. It was good prep for the exam. Mrs. Vance was delighted I stopped pestering her daughter. Elena, however, acted strangely. She kept coming to my room, trying to corner me. She even cooked for me. It was baffling. When I saw the sweet and sour pork ribs, my favorite, a dish too heavy for the Vance's bland palate, I saw a strange light in her eyes. Elena protected her surgeon's hands like treasures. She rarely cooked, even for Julian. "You don't have to do this," I said, putting a rib in my mouth. "It was actually good. You're my fiancé. I should care about you," she said, eyes shimmering with tears. "Caleb, Julian is deploying soon. You don't have to be so distant. I told Mom to start planning our engagement party. Do you want to go for a walk?" I clenched my fist, laughing internally at the flicker of hope in my chest. 2 lifetimes, and she could still pluck my heartstrings so easily. "I can't. I have things to do tomorrow." I closed the door and pressed my hand against my racing heart, killing any lingering delusion. Surprisingly, the next day, as I went to the exam, Mrs. Vance started buying furniture, just as Elena said. New, stylish pieces. I shook my head. Marriage is easy. She could marry anyone. Julian was a great choice. The exam center was packed. I nodded to my old professor and walked in. Thousands had applied for the Frontier Defense Initiative, but I emerged as number 1. Top scores in theory and practicals. The sheriff, who had come to support me, sighed, unable to argue with the results. Even my professor teared up. The road ahead was dangerous. They wanted me to stay in D.C., marry, and be safe. But the country needed me. "Thank you, Professor. Thank you, Sheriff." I bowed deeply to them, took my acceptance papers, and returned to the Vance estate. The general seemed to already know. He brushed dust off my shoulder. "Let's talk in the study. First, congratulations. First place. I'm proud of you. And your father would be too. But are you sure? Elena has been softening lately. If you want, I can." "No need, General. Thank you. This is the path I chose. The situation is critical. I leave tonight." I had just finished packing when Elena returned. She looked radiant, holding paper cuttings of the double happiness symbol. "Maria, look. I cut these myself. Are they good? I'm going to surprise Caleb with the engagement news." It was the first time I saw genuine joy on her face for me. I gripped my duffel bag, repeating my mantra. Don't look. Don't think. Don't want. "Where are you going?" She caught my gaze, staring intensely at my bag. Before I could answer, the phone rang. A few minutes later, she looked at me awkwardly. "Caleb, wait here for me. Julian has to leave for his mission. He can't take Leo. I have to go pick up the boy. Don't worry, Mom will watch him. You don't have to do anything." She rushed out as quickly as she came. I watched her reflection disappear, smiling bitterly. For a split second just now, I had thought, maybe a life with her wouldn't be so bad. I was too greedy. I walked out of the Vance estate. A black government jeep waited. The ride to the airfield. From this moment on, Elena Vance and I would never meet again. That night, Elena faced an empty room and grumbled a bit. But Leo was throwing a tantrum, so she assumed I had just gone home for a few days because I was sulking. But that night, she had a dream. In the dream, I begged for the marriage like a dog. I succeeded. We had a son named Little Treasure. But the Elena in the dream was monstrous. She siphoned our money to Julian's family. She took Little Treasure's food and gave it to Leo. In the dream, I cried and asked her if she even wanted our child. She called Little Treasure a bastard. In that toxic environment, our son grew to hate me, hating his weak father who couldn't protect him, unlike Leo, who got everything he wanted without trying. In my old age, broken by years of hard labor and serving her family, my legs failed. Elena took her pension and lived out her golden years with Julian. I lay alone in a hospital bed, often starving because no one came. Little Treasure would visit only to scream at me, blaming me for his miserable life. Over and over, Elena watched my tragic life from a third-person perspective. She saw clearly how she abandoned me, how her family drained my lifeblood, and how I died, crushed and alone in a mudslide. No, no. Elena woke up screaming, her pillow soaked. She had a terrifying intuition. That wasn't a dream. That was history. But why? Why was she so evil in that life? Caleb, Caleb. She ran barefoot into my room. Leo was sleeping in my bed. Why are you here? Where is Caleb? It shouldn't be like this. The flood of memories gave her a splitting headache. She had only one thought. I need to see him. Where is he? Where is Caleb? What is all this noise? The general appeared, rubbing his temples wearily. Seeing his daughter's hysteria, he sighed. You saw it yesterday. Caleb is gone. He won't marry you. He doesn't need our gratitude. I thought you accepted that. Elena's eyes lost focus, then snapped back to her father. Where did he go? How could he leave? We were about to get engaged. Mom bought the furniture. That furniture was for you and Julian. The fantasy shattered. Elena turned her head mechanically, disbelief written on her face. She had thought for so long that marrying a boring man like me might be okay. Now she was told it was all a lie. The shock was too much. She fainted. When she woke up to the smell of antiseptic, Julian was sitting there with Leo. Daddy, the bad man is finally gone. Now we can live in Mommy's big house. Leo chirped. Leo is so smart. Thanks to you, Daddy has the General's protection. No dangerous missions, just a good life. We won't have to suffer anymore. Julian patted the boy's head. It's because that hillbilly was so stupid, Leo said with an angelic face. I tore up his photo on purpose. So what? Mommy will always be on my side. He called Elena Mommy now, not Annie. Elena covered her mouth, stifling a sob. For the first time, she saw the child she had doted on for what he really was. She saw the man she had loved since youth clearly. How many stupid things had she done to let these parasites walk into her home and think they owned it? Mommy's awake. Leo ran over. Mommy, you worked hard. When I grow up, I'll take care of you. Julian smiled and reached for her face. She dodged him violently. He froze. After finally getting rid of me, he thought he had won. Seeing her reaction, he panicked. Elena, what's wrong? I know Caleb left. Don't worry. I'll take care of you, just like you took care of us. He made a solemn vow. Elena wept. These were the people she had cherished, and they were rotten to the core. Julian Blackwood, take your son and get out. I'll ask my father to find you a desk job somewhere far away. I owe you nothing anymore. Her tears soaked the pillow. Leo stomped his foot. Mommy, did the hillbilly say bad things about me? Don't you want Leo anymore? His crying was deafening. Elena looked at him with detached irony. You used this routine to make me soft before. Just like the photo. I always said you were just a child, but you have more schemes than an adult. I'm not your mother. Julian, take him and go, or I will make this ugly. For years, Julian had used every excuse to dodge deployment. Leo was too small, the house needed him. But who didn't have family? She had been blinded by love, aiding a coward and hurting a good man. What are you saying? Mrs. Vance walked in. She wanted to defend Julian. He was better than a poor hillbilly, after all. Mom, you treated Julian like a king and Caleb like trash all these years. Have you forgotten? Without Caleb's mother, Dad will be dead. You despised him for being poor, but without his family sacrifice, we wouldn't even exist. Elena felt despair. If they were this brazen in front of her, what had they done to me behind her back? Get out, all of you. She used her influence to have Julian transferred to a remote post in the Midwest, then began her long search for me. But my project was top secret. She looked for 3 years. Life at the frontier was hard but satisfying. The research consumed me day and night. Knowing I was contributing to national security filled me with peace. Unexpectedly, she actually found the facility. 3 years later, I don't know how she got clearance or found the location, but I was calm. When we passed each other in the hallway, I felt nothing. Caleb, a colleague, noticed my reaction and nudged me. I shook my head. For the first time, I realized that climbing high was the best defense. Only by ascending could I stop her harassment. She couldn't reach me. 20 years flew by. I took over my mentor's position, becoming a key asset protected by the state. Elena had managed to get transferred to the facility as a staff physician. She could finally walk the same halls as me, but I never acknowledged her existence. Until the day my body finally collapsed under the strain of high-intensity radiation and work. Elena knelt outside my isolation ward, begging to see me. Caleb, please, just let me see you once. I beg you. The noise outside was unbearable. I frowned, gripping my pen. Tell them to be quiet. It was the premonition of death. I was dying, but I had one last set of data to verify. I couldn't leave it unfinished. Separated by a wall of glass and steel, Elena took a scalpel and slashed her wrist, cut after cut. Let me see him. Dr. Van, stop. He's doing his final work. Everyone was weeping, but in my mind, there were only cascading numbers. When I wrote the final digit, I gasped for air, lying back on the sterile bed. I reviewed my life and closed my eyes with satisfaction. This time, the oncology protocols I developed would save millions. Those suffering in pain would have a chance to live. Caleb Stone. In my final moments, I saw Elena, her hands covered in blood, pressed against the glass. I saw my colleagues, my comrades in arms. It was a good day to die. The sun outside the facility was blindingly bright. I felt warm. The flag flying at half-mast in the courtyard was the red of my blood, the anchor of my faith. This time, I didn't shame my parents. The Stone family paid its debts to the country in full. On the other side of the world, a woman with graying hair wept on my grave. I heard her whisper through the veil of death. Caleb Stone, why couldn't you look back at me, even once in this life? Her voice was so hoarse, she could no longer cry. Indeed, in this life, the person waiting at the end was not me. Story complete.